Lovecraft's writing is so unique and iconic that the niche subgenre he created is simply referred to as his name. Lovecraft horror embodies cosmic horror that simply thinking about could destroy one's mind, the deterioration of one's sanity, and twisted abominations beyond human comprehension. With such juicy inspiration, it's no wonder that there are a lot of games inspired by this genre. So, here's the top 10 best Lovecraft-inspired games. The visual novel Gatson of the Golden Lightning is an unusual example. It is one of several visual novels set in a steampunk universe inspired by H.P. Lovecraft. In this world, humanity discovered a gate between Earth and a planet called Kadath. Yes, as in the dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, a novella by H.P. Lovecraft that deals with the search for the castle of Kadath, where gods known as the Great Ones reside. Even the game's title is a Lovecraft reference, if an obscure one. Gatson comes from the novella The Whisperer in Darkness, where the protagonist hears an unpronounceable word or name he thinks might be Nagakthan. The game also features Nikola Tesla saving the world. Yet, believe it or not, Lovecraft and Tesla is far from the weirdest matchup on this list. The Shadowheart series began in 2001, although its roots stretch back to the game Kodelka in 1999. They are horror RPGs that follow an alternate history filled with Lovecraftian inspiration. Many enemies, especially bosses, have clear Lovecraftian roots, like the Deep Ones, named after Lovecraft's race of immortal, ocean-dwelling beings. While the Lovecraftian inspiration is present in every game, it becomes even more apparent in the third, Shadowhearts From the New World. Even weirder, From the New World has a character that's actually named Howard Lovecraft, after the author himself. It doesn't get much more obvious than that. Unfortunately, it's impossible to find the original Shadowhearts games these days. Any chance of seeing them on PSN, Sony? If you thought Gatson was odd for putting Nikola Tesla in a Lovecraft-inspired world, then what about Sherlock Holmes? The third Sherlock Holmes adventure game from Frogwares abandoned the mundane crimes of its first two games. Instead, they decided to throw Holmes into a mystery steeped in Lovecraftian horror. As the renowned detective delves into the secrets of a cult awaiting the arrival of The One, you'll be treated to plenty of Lovecraft references, and perhaps even more amazingly, a story that blends the two writing styles in a way that feels completely natural. Amnesia: The Dark Descent was one of the best horror games I played, and I immediately felt like I was in an H.P. Lovecraft story, exploring the creepy castle, avoiding the twisted monstrosities that patrol its halls, and being stalked by a strange, unstoppable entity known as the Shadow. The Shadow is exactly the sort of unknowable entity that makes up Lovecraft's cosmic horror, but the game's diary entries are what stood out to me the most. The main character of Amnesia, Daniel, has, well, amnesia. As you explore, you find diary entries he wrote explaining how he came to be in Brennenburg Castle. These entries cover a disastrous archaeological expedition, a mysterious orb, and Daniel's desperate attempts to escape the living nightmare out to destroy him. With content like that, the entries read like an H.P. Lovecraft novel. Daniel, learning more about his situation by reading diary entries, only strengthens the connection. Finding dark accounts of past events is practically a staple for Lovecraft protagonists. While Sunless Sea doesn't have overt Lovecraftian themes, it's definitely a Lovecraftian atmosphere. Lovecraft's style of horror is known for a few things: cosmic horror beyond human comprehension, twisted beings whose appearances are often quite bizarre, and insanity. Insanity often accompanied by a sense of despair and bleak hopelessness. As you travel across the dark Untersee in Sunless Sea, you'll encounter strange horrors, risk madness, and often find yourself wondering if there is any hope at all, packaged neatly in an unusual blend of Lovecraft and steampunk. Sunless Sea's writing is its main draw. Although your characters will die at an alarming rate as you try to investigate this deadly world, the game is heavily driven by its narrative. It also has a wonderful sense of humour without passing the point of parody. On the surface, Sunless Sea may not appear to be very Lovecraftian, but the tone and mood definitely follow Lovecraft's style. Clive Barker's Undying is a first-person shooter horror game with a story designed by, no points for guessing this one, the horror writer Clive Barker. It stars a paranormal investigator named Patrick Galloway, who explores a dark estate and battles the supernatural forces that haunt it. You see, Galloway's friend, Jeremiah, once performed an occult ritual with his siblings, and it led their family into madness and death. Now, he's the only one left, and his siblings are haunting him. Rituals, madness, sounds like exactly what we're looking for. While there are ghosts and other common supernatural elements in Clive Barker's Undying, you'll also deal with eldritch horrors and alternate worlds, both common features of Lovecraft's writing. The entire game has a tone reminiscent of H.P. Lovecraft mixed with Edgar Allan Poe. At first glance, Bloodborne doesn't look like it has much to do with H.P. Lovecraft at all. Sure, it departs from the dark fantasy settings of From Software's Souls games in favour of horror, but it's quite apparently gothic horror, not Lovecraftian, right? Well, that's only at first glance. As you get further into Bloodborne, enemies start to look less like standard horror enemies, and more like creatures straight out of Lovecraft. Twisted and bizarre, not like traditional monsters at all. It's not just an aesthetic change either. The story, world and atmosphere all have a Lovecraftian tone, with powerful deities and the religions that serve them. Settings like Fishing Hamlet that directly parallel settings from Lovecraft's stories, in this case Innsmouth, and themes of madness. It captures Lovecraft's tone remarkably, even in a game where you can eventually battle your way through most monsters, which is a very un-Lovecraftian idea. Best of all, if you're the sort of player who loves digging into the lore of From Software's games, you'll find the Lovecraft parallels in Bloodborne become stronger the more you uncover. At the start of Darkest Dungeon, you inherit an estate, only to learn it has a terrible secret. You see, your ancestor accidentally opened portals to strange, twisted dimensions while exploring the catacombs beneath the house. In other words, your ancestor could have been the doomed protagonist of an H.P. Lovecraft story, and now it's up to you to deal with the monstrosities they broke free. Oh joy! To do this, you'll hire adventurers to join you in dungeon crawling, exploration, and turn-based combat. But don't make the mistake of thinking this is a typical RPG. Fighting horrific enemies, traversing dangerous places, encountering death at every turn, these things can take their toll on a person. As bad things happen, your characters become stressed. Accumulating stress inevitably leads to quirks, some of which are positive, but many of which are negative. Too much stress, and your adventurer goes insane, becoming anything from masochistic, hurting themselves in every turn, to hopeless, giving up on their lives and the lives of their party members. You'll need to manage your party's sanity as much as their health. Don't expect your initial heroes to stay with you till the end. Insanity, despair, yep, you're all but doomed. Darkest Dungeon embraces psychological horror and Lovecraft's bleak themes, and uses them to create a fascinating, compelling game that tells a story all on its own. When a game has Call of Cthulhu in its title, it's pretty safe to say it was inspired by H.P. Lovecraft. Strangely enough, this game only draws a small amount of inspiration from the Call of Cthulhu. Instead, it adapts the story of The Shadow over Innsmouth, into a dark mystery about a private detective investigating the strange happenings at the isolated town of Innsmouth. I can only assume they used the name because 1. They already had the rights to it, and 2. The Call of Cthulhu is the more famous of the two stories. Still, it is odd the game's title doesn't accurately describe what it's about. Regardless of its title, Dark Corners of the Earth blends first-person shooter, stealth, and psychological horror elements together into a game filled with cultists, insanity, and deep ones. Unlike most games on this list, this one is directly Lovecraftian. While many just use Lovecraft's theme and similar enemies, Call of Cthulhu is a clear attempt to adapt Lovecraft's stories into a video game. The PC version responds to most attempts to play it on a modern operating system with near constant bugs and crashes, and the Xbox version is buggy when played on an Xbox 360, but Dark Corners of the Earth is well worth the effort, if you can get it to run. Nevertheless, there is one Lovecraft-inspired game I place above even Call of Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth. But first, let's give a quick honourable mention to Cthulhu Saves the World. This light-hearted RPG from Zeboid Games isn't the place to look if you want serious Lovecraftian story, but it's the perfect choice if you want a parody filled to the brim with Lovecraft references. The GameCube exclusive Eternal Darkness Sanitys Requiem is H.P. Lovecraft in all but name. It stars a young woman named Alex Roivas, whose grandfather has been killed in a mysterious, horrifying way. Unsatisfied with the police's investigation, she searches her grandfather's mansion for clues as to what happened to him. She finds a book called The Tome of Eternal Darkness, and it leads her to discover exactly what her grandfather was involved with. And not just him, the Tome of Eternal Darkness is tied to people all throughout history. You see, someone is trying to summon an ancient. The ancients basically function exactly like the numerous gods in Lovecraft stories, powerful beings beyond human comprehension. The arrival of an ancient would cast the world into eternal darkness, and Alex must find a way to stop it. The overall plot is pretty Lovecraftian, but what really makes this game's story stand out is its structure. Each chapter of the Tome of Eternal Darkness teaches Alex about a new character tied to the mystery, and you play as that character to watch their story unfold. While the chapters ultimately tie together, each feels like it could be a short horror story of its own. In a way, Eternal Darkness is a collection of Lovecraft-inspired short stories bound together by one overarching plot. Not to mention, Eternal Darkness was the game that popularized sanity systems. Sanity is a key part of gameplay, and when your sanity is low, the game plays tricks on you. Not on Alex, on you. From appearing to change your TV's volume, to pretending to erase your save data, the game does its best to mess with your head and your sense of reality. Between its story, structure, and unique use of insanity effects, Eternal Darkness Sanitys Requiem might be the best H.P. Lovecraft-inspired game of all time. Now, if only they would make a sequel. If you enjoyed this week's list, leave a like. If you want to see more lists, click here for my 10 facts about Eternal Darkness Requiem that you may not know, or here for the top 10 best-selling video game franchises.